I was recently talking to a man who's waiting for his wife to come home, and one of the things he said is, I don't even know why she ever was attracted to this guy she's having an affair with. He's not as attractive. Now, again, this man wasn't saying it this way. He's not an arrogant guy, but he doesn't keep a job. He is on his third affair, and the third one's with my wife. Now, the funny thing about this is, in his case, his wife and he had a very solid long-term 20-some year marriage. And when this man, let's say John, when John's brother started having an affair, John's wife was like, how can he do that? Don't they know this and that, and this is truth and that's wrong, and I just won't accept what John is doing. I'm messing up the names. I don't remember. Okay. So she looked at what John's brother was doing, and she was appalled because she said infidelity is never acceptable. Came up with all these reasons, which are all very good, why it was wrong, shouldn't be doing it. Funny that, 9 years later, she was the one leaving and having the affair. She was the one that did everything that she used to be appalled by. How dare someone have an affair? How can he be doing that? And then, of course, she made her own excuses why, in her case, it was right. Well, we all know it's never right. But this is the point of infidelity. Infidelity is not right. It's not logical. And it's never, ever, ever, ever based on logic. It's never based on truth. No matter what comes from the mouths of the people in the affair, I never really loved you. This one was meant to be, this person's nicer than you. Nothing is based on logic. Actually, statistically, too, the mistress or the mister, right, is statistically less attractive than your spouse. Usually, and people having affairs know this, maybe logically, maybe not consciously. The spouse is usually better looking. The spouse usually has better values. The spouse usually has all these characteristics. But then why do they have the affair? And as I was saying to this person, I think I said his name was John, I was saying to John is it doesn't matter. She may have all the things, or she may have all her needs met with you. She knows you're a better provider, better looking, good father, all these years together. But when people have an affair, it is something that is not based on logic. It is something Satan just kind of pulls. So it's loosed boundaries. It's flirtatiousness. It's that one area that perhaps you are weak in. You could have a spouse that has everything, 9 out of the 10 things on your list, but he's not funny and he's not a good communicator. And so you find someone who just, again, Satan sends, and they make you laugh and they're communicating well. And you're like, oh my gosh. And you didn't even realize how much this person's filling that void. So much so that you walk into this, if your boundaries aren't high, if your faith isn't good, if your eyes aren't open, if you're not prepared, if you're arrogant, you think, I would never have an affair, because I've seen those happen all the time. We walk in the direction of that thing until we get to the point where we're like, whoa, what did I get myself into? And then, of course, all of the cognitive dissonance takes place where, and for those of you, I'll just explain it again. Cognitive dissonance is if my actions don't match my thoughts, well, then I'll just change my thoughts to match my actions. Well, in my case, having an affair is good because you were a bad husband and this person goes to church, so God said it was better to be with him. What? Anyway, we have cognitive dissonance all over the place in our culture right now. So because the affair is not based on logic, I think about the affair I had decades ago, and I'm not trying to throw the guy under the bus, though. I don't even know what's going on in his life decades later. He was very unattractive, missing a front tooth. I don't want to say too many other bad things. Had done gross things with I don't even know how to say. I'm not going to, in case anybody somehow 40 years later makes a connection to the person that used to exist in my life decades. I don't want to I'm not going to slander. He was unattractive in every way compared to my husband, except for something shallow. And I think I was probably just attracted to, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe he was, I don't know. That's been a tough one. So, because infidelity is not based on logic, getting them back is also not based on logic. It's a spiritual battle. The holiest person someone might think is holy ends up having an affair. It's still really between them and God. It's not about you. So you're in spiritual warfare, and your logic of explaining why it's bad, of showing the Bible, where are the verses, seeing what society says, seeing how rough it's going to be if I take all your money or if you don't get to see the kids. Someone's willing to do something where they can go from seeing their kids 100% of the time to seeing their kids 50% of the time. That just shows how logic, isn't it? I was so miserable with you. You're so rotten that I'm willing to give up my kids half the time. Wow. That was the one reason I never left my husband years later when things were still troublesome. If it was between leaving him and seeing my kids 50% of the time or staying with him and suffering and getting my kids 100% of the time, I chose the kids. But then God bless the marriage. If anybody would have given me logic, I could have cognitive dissonanced myself out of their logic. So if you want to fight this, know that it's spiritual warfare. The battleground is in your prayer, is on your knees, is in your fasting, is in your almsgiving. You are going to surrender everything you knew to God. Say, Jesus, I trust you. I surrender. He knows your spouse. He knows you. He knows all the people, all the places, all the logic, all the thoughts, all the everything in the situation. Your job is to ask God, what do I do? You tell me what to do. You lead me. And sometimes that might be to do nothing. Sometimes it might be to do something. Sometimes it might be to talk to a friend. Sometimes it might be to stay silent with a friend. Sometimes it might be meeting with your priest. Sometimes it might be a support group. Sometimes it might be reaching out to your prodigal spouse or daughter or son or neighbor. You need to listen to God. You need to get your instructions from him. And I know, of course, you guys all know it's all a marriage for me, but this is your prodigals that are prodigals on drugs. These are your prodigal family members that are into porn. These are your prodigal friends and family members that are into other addictions, gambling, things that are sinful. God, I can't break this addiction, but I want your guidance. What do I do? What are my next steps? So when your spouse, when your friend, when your child, when your loved one isn't making a logical decision, know that logic is usually not the way out. Because if logic were something they valued, they wouldn't have had the affair, started smoking the weed, taking the drugs in the first place. They wouldn't have started on pornography in the first place if logic were involved. So I'm not telling you to throw the logic out the window, but just trying to say you continue to use your logic amidst your spiritual warfare and turn to God. Ask him to give you the wisdom and the guidance. Hope this helps. What are your thoughts? I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching another short episode of Breakfast with Bacon. Remember again to live your life sunny side up.